Hey everybody, this is Mike. I'm going to do another video here in reference to the pump and filter that I bought for my pool. It was an upgrade. As you see, I have an Intex Easy Set pool. I did not use the original pump and filter that came with that pool. I have an 18 by 48. It's pretty big. When I fill the pool up to capacity, in fact, I fill it up a little higher than that. It's nearly 6,000 gallons of water. And that's a lot of water to be filtered and chlorinated with that little pump and filter that came with the pool. In fact, it was just sort of a joke. So I bought a Hayward Pro Series pump and filter. For all of you watching this video that are thinking about doing the same thing I did, just know that Hayward is a reputable company. They have been in business for decades. They are well known in the pool industry. If you invest in a Hayward pump and filter, you can't go wrong. It's well-made stuff, it works, and it's dependable. And you can see what I got. It's the Power Flow Matrix, and that pump is hardcore. It is really powerful, and the other pump that came with the pool just doesn't even compare. Not even in the same universe. That is a 21-inch diameter sand media container. It holds 200 pounds of sand media. For those of you that are thinking about upgrading to this, you can get that sand anywhere. You can pretty much use almost any kind of sand, but there is a special sand made just for pools that's been washed. It's super fine. That's kind of what you need to use. So this container holds 200 pounds worth, which was 4 50-pound bags. Okay, and you can get that locally. I actually bought this on Amazon, this pump and filter. It was a pump and filter and the base, and it came with the little gauge that you see up there, and pretty much that was it. Did not come with the sand or any fittings or anything else, and it was about 750 bucks. So it was kind of a big ticket item in my book, but I'm glad I did it, because I could not imagine using that original pump and filter. I didn't even unbox it. So this is what I have. Now let's talk about the plumbing. Not knowing anything about plumbing or even pools for that matter, I made sure I watched plenty of YouTube videos. I wanted to see how other people did it. So I went down to Home Depot, bought a bunch of plumbing parts. I just bought about 20 of these 90s. I bought a bunch of these unions. You got to have these. Like I said in my other videos, if you need to take this plumbing apart for some reason, this is the only way to do it. You just unscrew these, and I've got one there, one there, one there. There's more down there. If you don't add those and you need to take the plumbing apart for some reason, you're going to have to cut everything, okay? Because everything you put together is glued. So you don't want to have to cut any pipes. So make sure that you include those unions. This is probably about 350 bucks worth of plumbing parts, to be honest with you, including those valves. You got to have plenty of valves. And clamps, glue, primer. Okay, you see everything that I did here. Now, something else that you're going to need, you're going to make sure that everything is bonded. Okay, what is bonding? Well, it's basically a copper ground rod that goes into the ground. I hammered that thing in 3 feet down into the soil, and the motor is got a copper wire going to it, and then I have a pool bond over there, and I'll show you what that is. But it keeps everything from electrifying. If there's an electrical storm or some kind of an electrical mishap, nobody's going to get shocked or electrocuted. This is a pool bond, and basically what that is, I ordered that on Amazon too. Water flows through that pipe. There's an anode that sticks down, but basically a piece of metal, and it will corrode over time. It's supposed to. But water flows around that anode and basically protects the water, all the water in the pipes all the way up into the pool. Protects anybody from getting shocked or electrocuted. So you kind of need to have that, and that copper cable goes all the way over to the ground rod. So make sure you do that. I don't see a lot of videos on YouTube where anybody did this, and I think that's an oversight on everybody's part. I think they get excited, they put a pump and a filter, and they forget all about that. got to have a ground rod. Okay, if you notice, my PVC plumbing that I did does not go all the way to the surface of that pool wall. Okay, you can't do that. Not only if you look at the profile of the pool itself, it's at an angle. It would be difficult at best to try to connect PVC directly to the pool wall, but you can't do it anyway. You shouldn't do it because this pool is going to flex. It's an inflatable pool basically. So even just light swimming or splashing around, the pool's going to move. It's going to have some give and take. So you can only do hard PVC to a certain point. Then you're going to have a foot or two, if not a little more, of flex. And that's what I did. That's my jet going into the pool, okay? And then these other two lines over here are the intakes going to my T and then coming down the line. Now, if you see here, I've got a pool light. I bought that. It's an aftermarket accessory that I bought. It's not an Intex brand product, but basically what it is, it's a halogen 120 volt light. That's what that power cable is, and it lights it up really bright. You can buy LED lights. They even have some that use magnets. You put a magnet on the outside of the pool and you reach inside and that light connects to the wall. But they run off of batteries. They're pretty cheesy and they just don't last. The reviews are pretty horrible. So if you want to go on the cheap, yeah, okay, you can buy those, but you're just wasting your money. Invest in something better. I forgot how much that thing was. It might have been 150 bucks. They're not cheap either, but I wanted it to last. Again, make sure that you prime and glue everything correctly. I haven't had a single leak in any of my PVC plumbing. The only thing that I did have a leak on is where the PVC connects to the black plastic for the pump and also for the control head up there. These pieces are threaded, the ones I bought from Home Depot, and they thread down into here, and I did not use enough thread tape when I screwed this piece in before I glued this on. And there's several places where I had leaks, right there, right here, so I had to take it off and re-thread it. So I wrapped each one of these threaded threaded pieces of pipe 8 times, and that took care of all the leaks. So you got to remember too that when you get ready to screw these in, do not put pliers on here or any kind of a wrench. Just don't do it. Hand tight. That's as far as you want to go, as tight as you can get it with your hand. Because if you strip the female threads inside of here, you're screwed. You'd have to rebuy this whole piece. Okay, it's plastic. So once you strip the female threads, that's it. It's done. And it's the same thing up here. You have this piece that's got male threads. It threads into here. This threads into there, and the same thing here. Hand tight. Do not put pliers on there and try to tighten it. Hand tight, as tight as you can get it with your hand. That way you're not going to bust anything. Okay. Make sure that you put plenty of valves. I got a valve here because water is coming from those flex lines going into a T, coming down this line and coming to here. Well, this is a pre-filter. So when I get ready to open this up and take the big leaves or big June bugs or whatever it's in there, that's a basket in there, if I didn't have that valve right there to turn in the off position, water's going to continue to flow. In fact, I'll take this off and water will just flow all over the ground. So that stops the water. Okay, so you need to have one right before your pipe connects to this pre-filter. Okay, also you want to have a disconnect, or not a disconnect, but a valve that's going to your jet, and you want to have a valve that's going anywhere else. I have another valve over there because it goes up to the waterfall. Okay, so plenty of valves, plenty of these unions. This right here is a Chlorinator. Now there's 2 types of chlorinators. There's that type, that you put a chlorine tablet in and it just floats. It floats on in the pool, on the surface. Then there's this type that's connected to your plumbing. Now there's pros and cons to both. People that have this one say this is the better one because water is flowing through it and it's mixing with the water and throwing the chlorinated water out into the pool. Okay, people against using these say, well, they're no good because it's only chlorinating the water when the pump's running. Okay, well, that's true, but let's look at the downside of this one. If you put a chlorine tablet in that and stick it in the pool and let it just float, okay, it's only going to leach chlorine out really, really slow. You only put a tablet or two in there and it's just excruciatingly slow. So this, in my opinion, is a much better way to chlorinate your water. Now that thing holds 8, you unscrew it, it holds 8 chlorine tablets. You stack them up and it's the 3-inch tablets. Okay, it looks like a hockey puck. Okay, and you can get a bucket of these for about $100. All right, and that thing holds 8 tablets. Now, how long does 8 tablets last? Well, it depends on how often you have your pump running. Recommendations are that you run your pump for your pool, especially one that's about 6,000 gallons, at least 8 hours a day. I've got mine 3 on, 3 off. So in a 24-hour period, my pump is running 12 hours. So I will go through 8 tablets in a week. That's not bad. It's going to take me 3 months to go through that bucket. So that's not bad. All right, you also want to keep your pipes off the ground. Make sure that, you know, if you use any kind of a pipe clamp, that you actually put some, you know, get the clamps that have these little rubber protectors on them. Okay. You also want to make sure and use silicone sealant for everything. Let me cut here and go grab it. Hold on one second. Okay, so that is the silicone lubricant that I bought on Amazon. This is specifically for all your joints. Remember, this is stuff that's not going to, it's waterproof, it's not going to dissolve, and you need to put this everywhere. And what I mean by everywhere is right there where my flex is connecting to the nipple, and also up there where my flex is connecting to the pool. Over there, when you slip this hose on that nipple, you need to have it everywhere, because you're gonna have drips, you're gonna have leaks. Now you don't do it down here, okay, where you've threaded that in. You got thread tape for that. And you don't do it anywhere here where you've glued your connections. But anywhere that there's a gasket, when I put that light on, I put silicone in there on both sides. You want to make sure that you use plenty of that lubricant, because that's what it's for. Okay, and it's cheap. It's only a few bucks. All right, now let's talk about the pump here for a second. The manufacturer they'll tell you, I watched in a video and they talked about the operating procedures of this thing. You want to make sure that you never have that pump running while you're doing stuff. You want to make sure that you've got all your valves open, everything is the way it's supposed to be. Check everything, make sure all the lids are closed, everything's on, it's tight, before you turn that on, because there's so much power in that pump. Again, it's like a fire hydrant. It's got a lot of pressure. That blade, that impeller that's in there is really, really strong. So you want to make sure that everything is correct before you turn that on, because you're going to bust something. If you were to have all these valves closed and you turn that pump on, you would destroy all the pipes. I mean, it's that important that you pay attention to what you're doing. Also, on the selector switch up here, you have a setting for waste. Now, let's back up for a second. This is another thing. You never, ever, ever change the position of this to another position. See the water coming out? Without turning the pump off. You cannot change that selector switch with that pump on. You will destroy this whole head unit. You turn it off. Okay, so that waste setting that I was just telling you about, that's basically throwing water out from the pool. So when the pool gets to the point where it's going to overflow, like from a heavy rain, I just come out here, turn the pump off, put it on waste, and the water's going to come out right there. If you're wondering why I got a sock on there, that's because these wasps in Texas here, they are pretty relentless, and they'll go inside that pipe and build a nest. So I just put a sock on there. All right. Now, let's talk about this base for a second. When I ordered this, it came with the motor and the pre-filter and this, the head unit, you know, it all came together, and it came with a base. Now this, everything that's sitting on this base and including the base is just sitting here on concrete. It's not bolted down. I didn't hammer drill anything down and put bolts. You got a couple of bolts to hold this motor on. It's not going to move, and there's 200 pounds of cement. That's hard. That's like a rock, and plus it's filled with water, so it's not going to move. So it's just sitting there. This is another reason why I did concrete underneath my deck. The pool deck that I built, if you can look at this whole thing, I specifically placed that close to the electrical and all my timers, and left an open space here so that I could clean my pre-filter and change out my chlorine tablets. This is the area that I go under to operate my valves, check everything. You don't put it somewhere where you're gonna have to be a contortionist to get under there and service it. Plan ahead. How are you going to change the tablets? Where are you going to go? Where are you going to stand? So when I built this deck, I thought about everything before I put it in place. Okay, another thing too is power. You're going to need power coming to that pump. It's only 120 volt, which is good. Every household has got 120 volts, but you cannot run an extension cord from the house. It has to be a dedicated circuit, meaning that if I was to run an extension cord and plug it into my courtesy receptacle over here by my AC, that's not going to work. Okay, why? Because that's connected to my bird feeder out front. It's connected to my landscape lights. It has to be a dedicated circuit, so you can't plug it into something that's running power elsewhere in your house. So you're going to have to go to your electrical panel, and you're going to have to put in a 30 amp breaker. Okay, 30 amps. Most households are just 15 or 20 amps. So you needs to be a dedicated circuit and a 30 amp breaker. Why 30 amps? Because when that motor kicks on, there's a power surge. Okay, just for a fraction of a second until it equals out. But that thing is 15 amps by itself. So if you think, oh, okay, well, all my circuits are 20 amps in the house, I should be good. No, it spikes at 20. So it's going to throw a breaker every time you go to turn the pump on. So make it a 30 amp breaker. And depending on how far away your electrical panel is, that will determine what's gauge of wire that you use. Now, from power that's coming up that pole right there to all my electrical, from here all the way to my electrical panel was 150 feet away. So I ran 8 gauge. Now 10 gauge is the minimum. 8 gauge, as you know, is bigger, even though the number is smaller. I ran 8 gauge wire all the way from the electrical panel where there was a 30 amp breaker. So I have a courtesy receptacle here, as you can see, 120 volt, 30 amp. Okay, so if I need to plug in something else, I can do it right here. Then I've got my pump timer. Okay, as you can see, 3 on, 3 off, all the way around the clock. I have a timer over here for my deck lights and my waterfall lights. Okay, everything is on a timer. Then I have my pool lights. Okay, and this little thing here actually goes also to the pool light. That's a reset. But if you're going to do this, do it right. Don't take shortcuts and say, well, I'm just going to run an extension cord from the house and I'm just going to plug it into the receptacle that's on my on my patio. Don't do that. Okay, not with this. If all you're running is the original pump and filter that came with the pool, oh shit, you can do that. It's going to look kind of strange having an extension cord running out to the pool, but I rented a trencher from Home Depot and trenched from right there all the way to the back of the house, and then it was all the way through that gate, all the way to the panel that's way up at the front of the house. That was 150 feet away. So you're just gonna have to do it. If I hadn't been lazy, I would have also ran underground water, because you're gonna need water out here. For what? Well, what happens when you get ready to fill the pool? You know, you're gonna have to drag a hose from the house to fill the pool, especially here in the summer in Texas. Your pool level can drop 3/4 of an inch in a single day if it's triple digit weather. So think about that. Okay, it's good to have power and water out here where you're going to be servicing or maintaining your pool. Okay. Again, I would suggest, you know, if you do concrete like I did, it was one continuous pour. The pool is on a slab, and the slab comes under here. I did that specifically so I wouldn't be standing in rocks when I'm trying to change those tablets, and I wanted the pump and the filter to be level. I didn't want anything to move because I don't want the pipes to be cracking and creaking. So this is how I did mine. Can't think of anything else to say. I just wanted to give you a really good view of how I did mine. Let me walk around here. There you go. Kind of see from the backside. And another thing that I did, if you notice, is that I put everything under the deck. I kind of did that intentionally because I didn't want everything out in direct sunlight. You know, the motor gets hot, and it's not going to hurt it if it's out in direct sunlight, but it really helps to have it underneath this deck. In fact, all my deck boards up there, I painted it with a white non-skid paint, but I also caulked in between, and then I repainted over it again. So there are no gaps. No water can go through these spaces in between the boards. So when it rains, it's only dripping water from the outer perimeter of the deck. No water is coming through the deck in the middle, so none of this gets wet. So that was intentional, the way I did that. I can't think of anything else, but this is the way I did it. So if you have any questions or you have any comments, again, I made this video because people were asking for a video specifically about this pump and filter and how I did it for my pool. I have other videos out there. If you click on the little image of me in underneath the screen you're looking at there for Mike Sanchez, if you click on that, it'll show you all my videos. So I think there's 2 more videos concerning the pool and the deck and the pump. So go check them out, and if you have any questions, email me, and if not, just leave a comment. So I hope this helped you out.